balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic. Providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
What is up, Whiskey Warriors? That's right, this is American Perspective, and I am your host, Rick Thomas. We have completed another work week for those of you that work and, a normal Monday through Friday job. Let's just be honest. I don't, so I do have a work task tomorrow night, but don't worry, it's not going to affect the show. It is after the show. So tomorrow night will be a normal broadcast, just like always. Although I have to admit, we are in a fantastic weather pattern here. I know that some of the country has been under some severe storms and, that kind of thing. I get it. And I pray, of course, for everybody that has to deal with something like that. But here in the Pacific Northwest, at least for the next several days, we are on a warming and sunshine trend, which is nice for us this time of year because, most of the time, about 9 to 10 months out of the year, we're in clouds and misty rain here in Western Washington. Not on the eastern side. The eastern side gets plenty of sunshine days. But here on the western side in Washington, we tend to get a lot of long time rain. And by that, I mean it just sits there and just, kind of sprinkles. You can always tell if you're from the Northwest, in particular the Pacific Northwest, by how many adjectives you can use to describe rain. At least that's the running joke. The other thing, too, is that you'll notice anybody from the Pacific Northwest doesn't give a shit about the rain, and so we don't carry umbrellas. Unlike the Antifa idiots that are running around on the University of Washington who use the umbrellas for all kinds of stuff like keeping from being filmed, etc. Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's go ahead and kick this night off with a absolutely wonderful Pledge of Allegiance rendition by Coco Deminky from Rumble and her sons Cam and Sean. Now, just so everybody is aware, Sean is autistic and sometimes is also fairly nonverbal. So just to have him say some of the pledge is just absolutely fantastic that he does that. But you'll hear some sounds in there too. Don't worry, it's all part and parcel of the whole gig. So here we go. Please, if you are of mind, please stand, put your hand over your heart, take your hats off, pay respects, and join in Coco, Cam, and Sean in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and thank you, Coco, Cam, and Sean, for that. Of course, we wished Sean a 26th year birthday here not too long ago, and I gave him a happy birthday singing rendition, of course, like I always do for my Whiskey Warriors when I'm aware of when people have birthdays. I'm sorry, I just looked up and noticed Becky over on Facebook says night shift in aged care isn't normal. Anyway, all right, moving on to tonight's sponsor. Hey, looking this good in this shirt or any of my fantastic America-themed shirts is not easy. And the reason why it's not easy is because I don't make the shirts, folks. I don't. I have to acquire them. And where do I get them? I get them from theflagshirt.com. You ought to head over to theflagshirt.com and check out all of their offerings. They are running a fantastic special right now because it's Armed Forces Day coming up May 18th. And now you might be able to get that order in quick enough to be able to get them to send you something and have it here by Armed Forces Day, May 18th. They're giving you 50% off, but you know what? I'm going to sweeten the deal. I'm going to sweeten it by having you go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. You go to that website address, you will get a promotional code for $5 off, an additional $5 off of your order. So please head on over to flagshirt.americanperspective.online and get your code to put in at checkout. It's a promo code for $5 off your order. Once again, that's flagshirt.americanperspective.online to get that promo code that you enter at checkout at theflagshirt.com and take advantage of their additional 50% off selected patriotic favorites. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. And of course, I wear their cotton polos. That's what I wear. I always wear their cotton polos. Oh, Coco, you missed your you'll have to go back and listen to your pledge again. But anyway, so I definitely want to thank some of the Wendy Bell Warriors, Wendy Bell Radio folks who came over and followed my channel. That was great. I like that. And no, Mark, I do see you. I see you there. I see you. Anyway, so I do appreciate that. And, iHeartRadio is where my audio broadcast is being, I hit everybody. I hit Google, I hit Spotify, I hit my iHeartRadio, all of that stuff. I hit all of them. And I just got added to Amazon Music too. So if you want to listen to the audio portion of the program sometime, you can't view it, for whatever reason, maybe you're driving or whatever, you got to keep 2 hands on the wheel and can't pay attention, got to pay attention to the road. You can go ahead and do that at any of those podcast outlets. You can go ahead and grab any of my podcasts for that too. But I notice that iHeart really has taken off, and I do appreciate that as well. All right. So a couple of things before we get into the main topic tonight. So Biden, as I spoke last night, Biden publicly announced during a taped CNN interview with regards to the whole Israel-Hamas thing going on over there in the Gaza Strip is the fact that he backs Hamas. And he did so by saying that he was holding back major bombs and everything else over Israel's head. Basically, he was holding back on sending that stuff over there to help them out. Well, apparently now, because of his announcement, Hamas is refusing to budge on the hostage talks. Now, let's be fair a little bit to Biden. It's not just because of the fact that Biden announced this, as realistically, Hamas was not going to give up those hostages. They hang on to those hostages for a particular reason, which is essentially that they can use them as human shields. Israel tries very, very hard to avoid civilian casualties. Hamas knows this. Hamas uses these people as shields, as I've covered in this program extensively since the whole October 7th thing started. They have, Hamas has no inkling, no qualms about using civilians as human shields and killing them, blowing them up, however they want to do it in order to, up the numbers and kind of portray Israel in a bad light. That's just the way they work. Well, now Biden has done this, and so Hamas has walked away from any kind of peace talks, which, you know, again, that's what they've done. They've done it all in the past. This is nothing surprising at all. This is nothing at all surprising to anyone who has a functioning brain inside their head. Of course, Biden doesn't, but then again, you know, that's par for the course. Well, after we had talked about this, a new report came out that actually demonstrates even further that Joe Biden is in the hands of Hamas. In particular, I think he is actually in the hands of Iran. In the hands of Iran. And that is essentially that the day before that the Biden admin announced that it would withhold weapons from Israel, it issued a waiver on sanctions that we had in order to allow arms sales to Qatar and Lebanon. Qatar and Lebanon. Folks, Qatar is where the Hamas head guys have been hanging out and are essentially asylumed there. And Lebanon, of course, is an area where Hezbollah sits. So Biden is literally arming our enemies and arming the enemies of the Israeli state. Now, Israel, to its credit, and in particular Netanyahu, came out and said, you know what? We don't care about what you're going to say. We're just going to go ahead and do it anyway, which they're going into Gaza. In fact, there was even one part where they went ahead and I saw an article where Israeli tanks are starting to surround Rafah. So all of this, honestly, is just putting Biden in a bad light for anyone who understands the true nature of the situation that we're dealing with here. Israel is our friend. Israel is the only country in that part of the world that is more aligned with the American Western culture than any of those other folks that are over there, regardless of our connections to Turkey and the UAE and Saudi Arabia. For us to sit here and to block aid in terms of armaments to Israel is absolutely asinine. And in fact, it's so asinine that there's reports that there are now articles of impeachment being drawn up in the House for Joe Biden because of what he is doing here. You recall that Donald Trump got articles of impeachment drawn up on him for withholding aid to Ukraine in the exact same manner that Joe Biden is doing here. The problem is there actually is a law, and I don't remember what exactly which one it is. I apologize for that. But there is a law that essentially states that the president can't just go and insert his or her own viewpoint once Congress writes the law and allocates that money. The president has no other choice but to send that aid. And so now that it's been passed in both the House and the Senate, the president's required to follow through on that. There's also this thing called the Constitution that actually outlines some of that too. But apparently they felt the need to put in some sort of a law that Biden is now in violation of. Straight up in violation of it. And so this entire situation could be placing the Biden admin into more hot water than what it hasn't already gotten into. Not only that, but there's also several groups, especially some Jewish-run groups that are pretty much telling Joe Biden. In fact, I saw an article of one of Biden's largest donors has basically told him, look, you don't seem to get it. There's a lot of people out here who actually believe in supporting Israel. I mean, 75% of the country. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Doesn't matter to Biden anyway. As far as he's concerned, the only thing that matters to him is those people who are on the university campuses that are protesting, and of course, Dearborn, Michigan. Apparently, that's all that he seems to care about. Well, if he's, and honestly, it's things like this that is making him, well, yeah, you know what, Coco, I'm going to throw that up there. Coco Dominky says Biden doesn't get anything. His brain is moosh. Moosh. Yeah, well, he's oatmeal brains. This, I'm going to be completely, open on this, but he's pandering to a far left base. And let's be honest, if Oatmeal Brains actually was in control, I don't know if he would go quite this far left. But the fact of the matter is that his entire administration is holdouts from the Obama administration before him. And the Obama administration knew that they couldn't go this far left. And so Biden is basically pushing to go that far left from it. So, yeah, it's just anyway, Biden, for whatever reason, in the Biden campaign doesn't seem to understand that this is only going to hurt his chances of reelection, because we're dealing with a segment of society that is so far left that they are not in full grasp of their logical and reasonable faculties in their brain. They're just not. And he wants to pander to it, and he's making it, he's making it known. In fact, many far left Dems have been celebrating the fact that he's withholding aid to Israel and apparently giving aid to Qatar and Lebanon trying to do it underneath the radar, by the way, because that's just the way that he does. He's also sent millions to Iran. I've covered that extensively on this program with regards to all of the money. And then, of course, lifting the sanctions on the sale of Iranian oil, which has, again, helped bolster the coffers that Iran is using in order to proxy war with Israel through Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. But where he really doesn't seem to quite understand, and even a lot of the far left don't understand what's going on with this, is there's this group. So again, you have a camp of left people. You have a camp of right people who are going to do nothing but voting for Trump. And then there's that group that's in the middle that everybody is going to be fighting over in order to try and get their guy. Because, I mean, let's face it, you're looking at about 30% to the left, 30% to the right, and you have a 40% right in the middle that's needing to be picked up by one way or the other. And those folks are called the independent voters. And they're the ones, according to this post-millennial piece, independent voters are starting to say that Biden is a greater threat to democracy than Trump. According to, now get this is an NPR, PBS NewsHour, and Marist poll. So folks, this isn't a right-wing poll that's come out. This is a left-wing poll that's come out. These are the left polling their own in terms of the independents, and they're taking a look and going, what's happening here? Well, just 24% in that poll said that Biden would strengthen the country's democracy, while 53% said he would weaken it. For Trump, 40% said that he would strengthen it, while 42% said he would weaken it. And that's in this poll. Oh, hey, there's Savage Rich. You guys ought to go check him out. He is called the People's Pundit on Rumble. He's a great pollster, I'm telling you, and he's more accurate than most of them that are out there. But I'm sure he's kind of the video is talking about immigration and economy issues, not quite on the topic that I'm here for. But you ought to check out Savage Rich. He's Savage Rich Barris. But anyway. Overall, 47% of registered voters said Biden would weaken our democracy, while 48% said that Trump would weaken it. Now, that is totally different than what was there before 6 months ago or whatever. It's been changing. Despite more people saying Trump would weaken democracy, more people said that he would strengthen it, with 38% responding as such for Trump compared to Biden's 32%. So again, and this MSNBC panel was in complete shock over this. And this is what happens with the left. The left goes and they go and they look at things like this, especially those who are in the far left, and they look at things like this and they freak. They're like, oh my God, what's going on? Nobody's listening to me. Nobody's agreeing with me. Sorry. But anyway, and especially in MSNBC, which is MSLSD, according to Mark Levin, they can't get anything right, no matter what happens anyway. So this is a big boon for Trump, to be honest with you. This is a big boon for Trump, and we need to continue this, which again, I've pointed out on multiple occasions that him being at the trials, while it's not very good in terms of optics necessarily, or at least I didn't think it might be in the beginning, that's actually turning out to turn into his favor. In fact, it's going so much in his way that Trump's left-leaning, the biggest left-leaning, this is where you go to the Politico playbook in order to get what the left is thinking. And here it is in Politico. In Politico, and this is, let's see, is this today? No, this was a couple days ago, but this is a couple days ago article, but here's the title, and this tells you everything you need to know right now in terms of how things are going, okay? Here in Politico, Trump's political fate likely won't be decided by the courts after all. The former president is on trial in Manhattan, but his other cases seem increasingly stalled, it says. Well, when Politico starts talking about this kind of stuff and putting out headlines like this, you know you've got them running. You know you've got the left on the run. Here in the Politico piece, what once resembled a wall of legal obstacles. Yeah, see, hear how they write that? A wall of legal obstacles that stood between Donald Trump and his return to the White House is now looking like a little more than a series of speed bumps. Yeah, it's not slowing down. It's not slowing down at all. You guys think yeah. Anyway, the article continues. Prosecutors handling cases from Florida to Georgia to Washington, D.C. are discovering that bringing groundbreaking criminal charges against a former president is a lot easier than getting them to trial. No, what's hard about getting him to, or what's making it hard about getting him to trial is because you built them on a house of cards. There was no foundation there to begin with. That's why. That is why this is such a problem. Well, and it's a big surprise, of course, to the left, because to the left, it basically is Trump puts on bronzer on his face. He should go to jail for that for the rest of his life. You know. He's a racist, even though there's no evidence of that. Now, granted, I mean, he has slipped up. He does tend to say things. He does tend to say things that, you know, and most normal people would be questioning whether or not that he should, but that's the New Yorker in him, people. That's the way it works. They don't have what the rest of us would consider as a fantastic filter. When it pops into his head, Trump's going to say it. It's just the way he is. It's the way he works. That's the way he works. All right. So, shifting gears a little bit here. So there was a story, and I've been kind of contemplating not covering it because on the surface, it's really sort of questionable. I mean, I don't really have a lot of experience in this realm, in this arena, but it does, this particular story does bring to the forefront the idea and demonstrates a very strong reasoning as to why DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, is actually a very, very bad idea. Now, I've talked to you guys before. I've mentioned it before that, you know, if you're planning on having open heart surgery and you're putting your hands into, or putting your life, I should say, into the hands of a surgeon, okay, you're probably not really caring so much in terms of what their skin color is. I know I don't, or any other, you know, immutable characteristic that can and has no applicability to their skill as a surgeon. The same thing goes, I believe, in other things too. For an example, when you board that plane, especially those Boeing planes, like I was telling you about a couple episodes ago, when you have someone board a plane, you want to know that pilot is experienced and knowledgeable enough to be able to handle just about any kind of emergency that can occur, like a door blowing out blowing out of the plane. You want to know that that pilot can actually, you know, drive that human canister in the air and get them back down to Earth. Same thing goes with just about anything else that could entail somebody's life or safety. Well, here in Real Clear Politics, there's an article that is discussing the recent Secret Service scuffle. So for those that may not have heard about this, there was an incident involving a physical attack, by a Secret Service agent, happened to be female, tasked with protecting Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, I don't care about the fact that it was Kamala Harris, okay? That part doesn't matter, all right? What does matter, though, is that the Secret Service is tasked with protecting our higher up people in terms of the Vice President and especially the President. It's a type of job that you would assume would have a clear set of standards and vetting that would entail making sure that not only this person, whoever this person is not like some sort of a radical from another country or whatever, but that they're a patriotic American and that they are going to do their job no matter what. Because let's think about this for a second. The Secret Service has the unenviable task of stepping in front of a bullet or knife or any other danger throwing their body into the fray and hoping and praying that they are going to take the brunt of the attack rather than their protectee, whoever that is. And so you would think that you would want a vetting system that is clearly for people who would have that type of propensity, who could handle the stresses of the job, and who would be willing to trade their life, if necessary, for their protectees. Now, Dan Bongino talked a little bit about this on his show today, and he brought up some of his experience, and in it, he basically said, guess what? This isn't so far-fetched that occasionally there are people who go through the training academy who essentially get the wink and the nod and are like, hey, we gotta pass that person. We can't stop them. We gotta pass them. And usually it has something to do with some sort of a quota that needs to be made. And this is where DEI really comes into play, and it starts to mess things up. But back to this article, and let me go ahead and show it to you for those on Rumble. Go to rumble.com and look at the video. You can see the article that I'm talking about. But the Secret Service agent that was assigned at the time it was removed, that did the attacking, was removed from her duties Wednesday after physically attacking the commanding agent in charge and the other agents trying to subdue her, according to an agency spokesman and knowledgeable Secret Service sources. Several sources in the Secret Service community identified the agent who physically attacked her superior, and I'm not going to say her name. The altercation apparently happened at approximately 9 a.m. at Joint Base Andrews, the home base for Air Force One and Air Force Two, which are the Boeing aircraft. Whoa, I'd be checking that thing out. Used by the president and vice president. So, apparently she showed up at the terminal, began acting erratically, grabbing another senior agent's personal phone and deleting applications on it. And another agent who was a shift leader was able to recover the phone and then acted as if nothing happened. But the agent's bizarre behavior didn't stop. She then began mumbling to herself, hid behind curtains, started to throw items at another agent. And then she started yelling and saying something like the other agents were going to burn in hell and needed to listen to God. Now, here's the thing is that, and I won't go through all of the details. There's some other stuff that happened, but again, this is a very high stress job. It requires a high level of observational skills. And once again, you have that knowledge that you need to that you need to be willing to be able to trade your life for somebody else's. That's a high stress job. I mean, that is at any point in time when you're in a crowd or, at a stop, anytime you could be called upon to make sure that you're the one taken in a crisis situation rather than the president, or in this case, the vice president of the United States. And I'm sorry, but passing through a training course just because you are checking a certain sectionality box does not give me any comfort in knowing that the people that are surrounding our president and vice president are actually qualified to do the job. Same thing goes for even just a standard police. How many times have you seen, and believe me, I am not being critical necessarily of women in the police force or women in combat necessarily. If you can, my general belief is if you can do the job and are able to physically and mentally and have the capability of doing that job, then there's no reason why you should be stopped from doing that job. Now, the chivalry side of me kind of says, well, women really shouldn't be in combat, but realistically, women have been in combat for many, many years as nurses and so on and so forth. So they may not actually be doing the fighting, but they are in support roles that end up in combat quite often. But the thing about it is that DEI is basically destroying is this concept of merit, that as of right now, you can just check a certain intersectionality box and you're automatically given preferential treatment. So going and doing certain jobs, for an example, being a high-level skilled doctor or even an ER doctor. I mean, realistically, would you want to have an ER doctor that doesn't understand how to handle trauma? No, you're not. You would want one of the most highly trained doctors that you possibly can get at a time where your life is in their hands. The same thing goes with just about anything. You wouldn't want somebody driving a bus full load of kids who hadn't been trained correctly or possibly couldn't even do the job, because that would put the kids' lives at risk. You've got all kinds of jobs that are out there. All kinds of jobs that are out there that people have to be highly skilled and highly trained in order to be able to do them. You certainly wouldn't want a preferential treatment, for an example, for a police officer who has sociopathic tendencies or has psychological challenges, because there's a lot of things that a cop has to be able to handle on a regular basis. I mean, here's an example. Just take a look at Karine Jean-Pierre. She definitely has difficulty doing the job that she has been put forth to do, and she literally has said she will not step down. Even though her performance is horrible, she's literally said she will not step down. And that, honestly, to me, that's not exactly a high level job that I would think would be very, that somebody could step in. I mean, that's not what I would consider a high risk, high level job that would be hard to do necessarily for someone. But there you have it. And DEI is even more so than just hiring individuals. Here's another example. And this one hits home. Okay. Our local school district, and actually many local school districts, but our local school district also, all school districts throughout Washington state are being required to hire DEI representatives. Well, there's one reported school district here in the state that had to let go, reported 63, that's right, 63 teachers in order to be able to free up budgetary money to be able to hire a DEI representative. Now, the DEI representative reportedly is being paid $250,000, $250,000, and they had to go and make room. So that's 63 instructors that have been let go on an already overloaded system. I'm fairly certain of that, because the average class size in many of these cases are around 30 to 35 students per class, which is way more than what somebody could be asked to watch for. But now they are no longer a part of that school district. And so what's going to happen with those, if you take those 63 instructors and remove the kids, they're just going to basically be increasing the class sizes for the remaining instructors, all so they can have this DEI representative. Now, that being said, being able to treat people with respect, being able to treat people with integrity, honesty, those were things of the past. They were things that were just ingrained in every individual. You just treated people a lot better than what you do today. So what would necessarily be the point of having a DEI person? Because again, keep in mind, there are certain things that certain classes of individuals, certain job descriptions and requirements, and pretty much all of them, pretty much all jobs should have certain qualifications that provide for doing the job that are much higher in terms of meritocracy, higher weighted in terms of merit and ability and skill set than just having the proper type of skin or just being the certain gender. But we're giving all of that away in order to be able to provide for what is essentially letting everyone do every job, regardless of how qualified they actually are. This is going to cause some serious problems if it hasn't already, and we just haven't caught it yet. It will definitely cause some dangerous situations to show up. And this is part of the reason why that whole Boeing thing, everybody immediately thought of DEI as being the problem. This is going to continue, folks, under the left and the leftist policies that we have running around in the culture right now. And honestly, it, understandably, there are certain people who are, quite irritated over this. And very rightly so, especially if you get passed over. So for an example, let's just say somebody goes and does the tests, passes all the exams, all of the tests and everything else. There's only one slot available for this, whatever this high-end job is. We'll call it high-end by classifying it as a very highly skilled, high-risk, and, with it, high paying. Let's just put that out there too. But instead, somebody who comes in who can't quite pass the tests, who doesn't quite make the grade, and I'm not talking about, being off by hundreds of points. I'm saying it could even just be like a 2 or 3 or 4 point difference. Just somebody, there's one person that edges everyone else out. And they happen to be white, Christian, male, as an example. And then you have the next person on the list who doesn't quite make the grade, but they get the job just because of the fact that they have the proper skin color, are the proper sex, or any other immutable characteristic that's tossed into the mix as being valued more than the individual who can actually do the job better than anyone else. Now, DEI and the way that it's being promoted and used actually does have some tenets that are rooted in Marxism. This is why we have to be very careful in terms of what we are doing here, because, again, The American Marxists are taking over. They're taking over in all of our major institutions. And you can see that everywhere. You can see it everywhere. All right. Let me go ahead and take a quick break for just a moment. Let me tell you a little bit about TGRN Blues. Go to tgrn.net. That's tgrn.net and check out our channel, TGRN Blues. Now, what does TGRN stand for? It stands for True Grit Roots Network. That's right, True Grit Roots Network. And we have a 365, 24/7 blues channel that is hosted and has some fantastic shows by some on-air personalities that all come from the blues genre. They're either in a band, are part of blues, the blues music scene for years, and they all have a unique characteristics and viewpoints on the blues. You should come and check it out. Go to tgrn.net and listen to our radio station. There's a widget, they call it, right there on the page that allows you to listen through your browser, or you can go and listen to us through the Live 365 catalog of digital radio stations. You can find us there, or you can even find us through the Odyssey app. That's AUDACY, Odyssey. And I know I'm pronouncing it, but that's how it's pronounced. AUDACY, Odyssey. And you can find us there. We also are part of iHeart as well, from my understanding. So there's all kinds of places that you can listen to us. You can take us with you. We are any place that you can get internet connectivity, you can listen to us 24/7, 365. And that's, it's a fantastic station, I'm telling you. And we're hoping to be able to expand sometime here in the near future. We're looking at different channels and trying to bring the same quality radio to other genres on the station. And when that happens, I guarantee you I will be announcing that. But until then, please check out True Grit Roots Network, TGRN Blues. We're stationed out of Austin, Texas. We thank you for listening. All right. So, you remember how I've been kind of talking, and I've talked about this a couple of times throughout the week here, where we've been talking about illegals voting in our elections. And I've pointed out multiple times that even if illegals are actually not and respecting our laws, which, just by the mere fact that they're illegal means that they're not really respecting our laws anyway. But the fact that illegals are not voting, according to the left, they are not voting in our elections, then there shouldn't be any kind of a reason as to why we would necessarily need laws that would prevent them from voting in our elections, right? I mean, this is the honor system, correct? Yeah, well, this came out in the Epic Times. Republicans appeal Republicans appeal non-citizen voting decision, ask for enforcement of existing laws in Arizona. Now, there was a federal judge's ruling that apparently the ruling itself could open the door or leave the door open for non-citizen voting. So here's what it is. There was in February, Judge Susan Bolton of the U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona ruled that two laws passed in Arizona in 2022, which are House Bill 2492 and House Bill 2243. Keep in mind, these are Arizona House bills, not federal House bills. but she ruled that they are not discriminatory. Now, originally, the Republicans in there said in the May 10th release called that decision a landmark legal development for election integrity. However, they took another look and they are now appealing a key portion of the federal ruling seeking to strengthen protections against non-citizens voting in state elections. And remember, keep in mind, I told you a while ago that Arizona was one of those places that if you could prove that you were a citizen of the state, you would get a state ballot. But if you couldn't prove it, you would just get a federal-only ballot. Okay? So now what's happening here is that the decision that she put out in February stops Arizona from requiring documentary proof of citizenship to vote in presidential elections or vote by mail. Wait, what? Let me read that again. Her decision saying that those two House bills were not discriminatory, her decision stops Arizona from requiring documentary proof of citizenship to vote in presidential elections or to vote by mail. Well, on May 8th, the Republican group went ahead and filed an appeal. Our appeal will fight this decision. This is a joint release from the Republican committees. Not requiring proof of citizenship in order to vote in presidential elections or vote by mail undermines a fundamental principle of our elections, that they should be decided by American citizens. The appeal, said Warren Peterson, who is the president of the Arizona State Senate, and Bed Toma, who is the Speaker of the Arizona House of Representatives, will be joining the RNC and Arizona Republican Party in the legal action. Now, in case it's worthy to note that Peterson and Toma are Republicans. But Gina Swoboda, who is chair of the Arizona Republican Party, said in a release, "Every voter in Arizona has a bedrock right to ensure their votes and their voices are not diluted by ineligible voters casting ballots and impacting our elections and our representation." Now, here's the thing, and again, I go back to this consistently, okay? There are, across the entire federal system, you have the motor voter scenario, okay, which was a law that was passed in 1993 trying to make it easier for people to vote. And so what they did is they tied it to getting like a driver's license and or applying for Medicaid assistance, Medicare assistance, whatever kind of assistance at any kind of federal office. The idea was to make it so that it was easier for people to get onto voter rolls. The challenge here, though, is the fact that the law didn't go quite so far as to say, well, you need to verify a person's citizenship before they can be put on the federal voter rolls. And the challenge, of course, with all of this is the fact that in the majority of cases, the states only have this little checkbox that basically states, I certify that I am a citizen of the United States. And you're supposed to check that checkbox. Well, for somebody who is not of here and maybe have English as a second language, or maybe not even understand English at all, they could mistakenly check that box, which, as I told you in a past program here just this week, has happened. It's been proven. Now, Tucker Carlson brings up the point that if a person who is an illegal citizen, or an illegal alien, okay, comes into this country and feels and believes at the time that they check that box and goes to vote that they are a U.S. citizen, then there really isn't much in the way of a punishment for them. They have to essentially demonstrate, which I'm still trying to grasp the whole idea as to how you can prove that somebody believes or doesn't believe in whatever they're doing. I mean, that's like one of the hardest parts of a court case that would essentially, it's the person's mind. It's in somebody's mind. You don't know what they believe or what they don't believe. But the point here is that unless you have photo ID, and it has to be like a government issued photo ID, again, I advocate for a U.S. passport being the only available ID for people because of the fact that driver's licenses are handed out to illegal aliens. Pretty much anybody that can prove that they live in that state and can pass the test, generally speaking, can obtain a driver's license or a state issued ID. But as far as that goes, the whole point here is if you had the election system where ID had to be verified prior to the vote, then you wouldn't have as many of these things occurring, nor the possibility of it. Now, of course, the left keeps arguing over the fact that this is a way to suppress the votes. And I've played that mistaken video from Ami Horowitz, who basically showed that most persons of color, at least the ones he interviewed in Harlem, not only had ID, but they also didn't care if they were asked for it at voting time. And I would say that the majority of people who would be willing to vote in the first place probably wouldn't even care and more than likely already have that ID. But this is just another way for the Democrats to essentially open up a loophole, just like they do with mail-in voting, because, when a Republican wins, the mail-in voting is bad. But when a Democrat wins, mail-in voting is good. And, they've had, like the New York Times had this whole piece with regards to mail-in balloting being very open to fraud. And this occurs quite often whenever we're dealing with election cycles like what we're dealing with. And we also just as a, Judge Wild over on Rumble says enhanced driver's license. You're right, but that's just something that we do here in Washington. That doesn't necessarily apply across the board. As far as like every state, we do it here because because Washington State's standard driver's license doesn't meet what's the requirements that are in the Real ID Act. That's why we have the enhanced driver's license here in Washington, which does actually verify citizenship, by the way. But anyway, I digress. All right. Looks like we're coming up to the top of the hour. Tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, will be our next installment of American Perspective with Rick Thomas. Do me a favor, if you like the broadcast, if you like what I do, head on over to rumble.com, sign up for an account. It's free. And while you are there, search up the American Perspective channel and hit that green follow button. If you're already in Rumble right now, I would surely appreciate a thumbs up, because that, and also, hey, comment on the video too, because apparently now I'm being told that both the likes and the comments count toward getting this video more exposure, these videos like this. So this is just absolutely imperative. If you like the broadcast, please go ahead and do so and add some commentary, not the chat, not the live chat, but the commentary on the video. You can add comments there. All right. Have a great rest of your evening. I'm going to take off. I'm probably going to go and be doing some chores around the house here while the sun is still shining. And we'll see you all tomorrow night. Good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.